Welcome back to
Yeah.
All Politics Are Local, America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. Before we go any further, we will announce that All Politics Are Local is purely a community radio production, and the ideas and programming do not in any way reflect the views or positions of Rutgers University North. The views that are spoken represent only the views of those who speak. Welcome back. We have Ed Riley to my right, and we are honored to have the Honorable Mayor Ras J. Baraka to my left. And for this third Friday of the month, is the Mayor's Forum.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh
So
yeah.
welcome. So welcome back, man.
Glad to be here.
There's been a lot of things going on.
You better believe it.
A lot of people talking a lot of stuff.
Almost to the point where you're damn near challenging the brother's blackness.
Wow.
We gotta
right.
kind of deal with that, right? Because right off of the bat, I don't think you get no more blacker than Mayor Baraka.
It'd be pretty difficult.
Yeah, and
I remember reading poetry by his daddy
yeah,
in college to get me through.
Yeah,
Ain't nothing
yeah,
blacker than that.
yeah.
Ain't nothing blacker than black people when
Yeah.
you're talking about 1967.
Yeah.
That's the blackest that poem that
And,
ever read.
and let's not forget his mama, Amina Baraka.
Right.
Right. I think people who would question where he's coming from in terms of helping black people get through the difficulty that we're undergoing in the city of Newark ought to be silenced, right?
Well, I don't think it
Because
should
when
be silenced.
No, no, no,
But
no,
I think
no,
it silences
no,
itself when people actually
no,
look at
no,
they look at what he's
no,
doing.
no. When you question, it's cool to question him as a politician, but when you question him as our brother, and when you question him as a black man, nah, you got to come better than that, right? And the reason I say that is we didn't have a premier black leader in the name of Louis Farrakhan, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, come here and tell us who this brother
He
is,
black
like
too.
we like,
He
and we
really
didn't
black.
need that, right? So I know the man don't need me to speak for him, but I wanted to say that publicly because this is my brother, and I would say that to him privately, but I wanted to say that publicly, right? And we could ask him, yo, man, take your mayor's hat off and let's be brothers, because at the end of the day, the same condition that people are suffering in Newark, he's also going through
Well,
in his own house.
and I'm saying we haven't let the mayor speak yet, but I'm just saying if you put the mayor's hat on, like the mayor's doing a lot of stuff that has never been done before. We've had these lead lines for I don't know since the 20s or 30s. It's never been done.
1800s.
1800s, right? When they put them in, and like it hasn't. It's the first in New Jersey to do it. People are going to follow what we're doing
In the country.
in the country.
Yeah,
next
first,
to Flint. Yeah, next to Flint. Yeah. Raise our own money, and Flint's still replacing lead service lines 5 years later.
And so we'll be finished before Flint.
Yeah. Yes,
So-
we will be.
So we're 2.5 years.
2.5 years, maybe sooner.
So talk to us, Mayor. Like, what do you think about what's going on? What you got to say?
I
There's a
gotta
lot of
say,
stuff.
Elvis was a hero.
He never did.
Straight up racist. The sucker was simple and plain.
Mother and John Wayne.
yeah,
And I'm
Yeah.
black and I'm proud and I'm hyped and I'm amped. Most of my heroes don't appear on those stamps. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Can't believe it's
Fighting
been 30
proud.
years.
Yeah, 30 years. I used to say that on a train in New York. With my headphones on. People ain't know we had the headphones then with my Walkman.
Oh yeah. Remember
Yeah,
that?
Walkman.
Wow,
Yeah.
you said Walkman. You really
I had a
brought that.
Walkman. Yeah, I didn't have an iPod. We had Walkman.
Right. iPods didn't come to like 2000 something.
Yeah. But yeah, this thing, man. People, at the men's meeting, we were talking about just the finance, the finance behind our suffering, right? And we never look deeper than the face. And most people, are satisfied with looking at things on a face level, and the press and everybody else take us to that level, and we never question what's being done or what's being said or who's saying it. We just react to everything that's going on, which is why you have a lot of people that are reactionary. They become backward and reactionaries because they're going off of what they hear and say, and every minute things change,
Right.
right? And so they're reactionary, going off of the latest information they hear and not doing the research and study themselves. And then you got people who benefit from the fact that we are in this position, right?
Right.
So there are people that are always benefiting from the fact that we are in a fight or that we don't have the same thing everybody else has. They benefit from that, and they're not interested in fixing it because fixing it takes them out of relevance. So there were people who came down to the local finance board, I'd rather not say their names, prepared to tell those folks not to approve our $120 million.
Can you explain that, like in terms of what is the finance board, what does it do, and because when you said what's behind our finance, like
Well,
most people just don't even understand that.
well, that's two different things. Right? So the local finance board, any transaction that happens in government, municipal government, has to be approved by the local finance board, especially something of that magnitude. This is probably one of the largest public works projects that's going to take place in Newark in a few decades, right? So you're talking $200 million of this, and plus other stuff, supplemental stuff that comes with that. Um, so they have to approve the transaction, us getting a loan, uh, all of the stuff that's associated with it.
And is that board, is it an agent of the state?
Is
Is
an
it
agent
just
of the state. Is a state board that's designed to do that, right? To make sure that the financial transactions that cities make are lawful, legal, that you can handle it, that you're supposed to do it, all those kind of things. So they have to prove it.
So it's oversight. It's really just state oversight of financial decisions that are made,
Right.
that of large or significant financial decisions that are made by cities.
That's right, absolutely. And so they approved it, but there's people down there trying to get them not to approve it, and because they want to be able to say we're not, we couldn't get it done, and so they would risk the safety and health of thousands of people just simply to give me a black eye.
But I don't understand. You're saying that people protested so that the money to
Well, they
replace
didn't
the
protest.
residents.
Well, it was kind of a protest. They came down there in the process to do that. Put themselves on Facebook Live, did all kind of stuff to try to prevent us from going forward with this, and then came up with all kind of scenarios. We are subject to the county, our police force, the fire, the garbage is
But
all
that's
going to
not
be
true.
under. No, none of it is true, and that the taxpayers, all this stuff is going to go up. Just all kind of wild scenarios.
But that's not even how it would work. Like these
Yeah.
are just bombs that are taken out, right?
Right, it has nothing to do with that. But at the end of the day, their job is centered around trying to create distrust. And I learned that a long time ago when I was in Nation of Gods and Herbs as a kid, at 15, 16 years old. Trying to think. One of the lessons say, the 10%, make the 85% distrust the 5%.
That's right.
There.
Right. So that they can be ignorant, right? Because ignorance is just not knowing,
Right.
and confusion. So when the author of confusion, we know who the author of
That's right.
confusion is, right? So they create confusion and chaos, so there's no clarity. When there's no clarity, people are groping in the dark.
So a lot of people just don't understand what the bomb process is. Right?
They don't
Like, so
understand anything that's going on. They're trying to, get the messaging out to them, but we don't own multimedia agencies, right?
Right.
So, but at the end of the day, the bond process is just one part of it. You're talking about $120 million, $78 million before that. Some people are going to come to the city, they're going to make money. They're
Right.
going to make a significant amount of money, right? The question is, we're not even prepared to what we should be doing is talking to people about how they can be a part of fixing that.
Right. Like, can you be one of the companies that actually helps?
Or if you're a plumber or
Right.
a paver or anything else, how can I get involved? How can I get a subcontract? How can I take care of my family with this? These people are going to come to our city, make money, and leave. We're going to have to grant these contracts to big companies because we got to get it done fast. And so we're going to mandate that they do all these other things, WMBEs, that the unions begin to, have apprenticeship programs. But we have to make sure that our folks are prepared, and we should be talking to people about that. We focused on the wrong things.
So when most communities, they want infrastructure projects because that means jobs for locally. Like
Yeah.
in many places, you get large infrastructure projects, and a lot of the people who are local contractors, local construction, they get paid from that. And you're saying that that's not really the focus of a lot of people within the city.
No, we focusing on it. We're going to be focused on it. We're going to be directed and focused on it. We want the people who are interested in it to be focused on it too. But that's not the discussion, because discussion is never about empowerment. People who benefit from you being a slave will always work hard to make sure you remain one.
Come on, man.
And then you know, give you information so you could get away from the people who are actually trying to lead you out of slavery, right? Because they benefit from the fact, and then you can see those people. They're very consistent. They're very consistent, so they're not inconsistent. And if you watch the history of these people, they're very. And 25 years ago, when they were running around here calling black principals drug addicts names, defaming the character of the superintendent at the time, calling for the state to take over the schools.
Wait, hold on. Stop for a second. You're saying the same people who are protesting, the same people who are protesting,
exact same people,
actually advocated for the state to take over North
Sure.
School?
And then 20 years later, they say, "Oh, we need the state out," right? Any, you know, you got to be careful and look at the history. But it's all printed. It's all clear. Pay attention, but we don't pay attention. It's the same folks, and they'll do the same thing because the reality is, Newark water system is 3 times the size of the city. We have billions of gallons of water in reserve.
Right.
We have the ability to run water all the way down to Monmouth County, and
Which
upstate,
we do. We export water.
And upstate, but not all the way down there. We can. And upstate New York, it's been engineered in such a way that the water moves based on gravitational pull. So we could give water to anybody we want to, right? When a state is in a drought, Newark is never in one. When Sandy had the problem and they had to stop the water use around the state, Newark did not have that problem because we have excess water that the city owns. We're the only major city in the state of New Jersey that still owns its water system.
Excuse me, can you repeat that and can you explain why?
Because we fought to keep it.
But
when I was a councilman, I made sure that the Newark's water was not sold and given away.
I don't understand. How can water be sold? You're saying that other cities, other cities don't own their own water supply?
Because you know, and you don't blame them sometimes because the resources are rough. You know, you don't have the resources to do the things that you want to do. The cost of living always increase. You're trying to provide and take care of people in these communities, and it's difficult.
Like Jersey City don't own its own water supply.
No, they don't.
Patterson don't own its own water
supply.
No,
they don't.
Camden don't own its own water supply.
No, they don't.
Who owns it?
Private companies.
Wait.
Right. Don't you remember, John, when they were trying to privatize the water in Newark? And there was
who would do such a thing? But who would want to privatize water?
People trying to make money. We trying to balance your budget. You know, you try to. Those are easy ways to balance the budget. Know, not to get smacked by. It's hard, but it's and so I understand where you're coming from. But
if you privatize it, wouldn't that be you're permanently giving away your water?
You are. But it also, it's an immediate fix to a crisis that you have. And it's difficult, you know what I mean, to go through something like so. If you're an elected official and you're interested in running again and doing all this other kind of stuff, you do these quick fixes so you can take care of stuff because you can't weather the storm because it's always going to be a storm,
right?
And it's going to be the storm for us is greater than the storm for everybody else.
But
a storm for black mayors, brown mayors is greater than the storm for everybody else. Right. It's difficult to weather those storms. So I understand on the one hand, people trying to do something to prevent them from being in the middle of a storm. I just take the position that there is no way to avoid storms.
Right.
Right.
And you don't sell your water in a storm.
Well, many people have, brother. So I don't want to use it as a means to say anything negative about them. I just want to let us know that it's important that we maintain the resources that we have.
Because all over the world, municipal water is being bought by corporations, and they're not.
Listen, historically, the Indians sold things, the Native Americans sold stuff, Africans sold things. They did this stuff to maintain whatever. So in hindsight, it's easy, or when you're not in that position, it's easy to say those kind of things. But like at the end of the day, the value of it, you have to understand what the value of it means. And even in we don't have cash flow. Right, that's why families sell their homes and they shouldn't. Right. The kids get a house from their grandmother. They should hold on to it, but they need cash flow, so they sell it. And so, in the immediate sense, it works. But 10 years from now, you hard pressed because the wealth of the home is actually more important than the immediate cash flow
that you would spend anyway.
But But if you're starving, it's hard to tell a starving person. Right. Not to sell what they have so they can eat in the present sense. You understand what I'm saying? Right. If you're hungry, you're going to sell what you got in order to get some food for you and your family. And it's difficult. They put us in these situations where you have to make these kind of decisions. But Newark is the only city that owns. We have the largest water system and the most valuable water system, and people have always been trying to take it from us, manage it from us, take it from us, and we refuse to allow that to happen. And so, even so, this is going to cause trouble for everybody else because we fixing the lead service lines, and the lead service lines belongs to the homeowner, right?
Right.
And in cities where the water system is privatized, they're going to let you fix your own lead service line because it's about the financial gain, the bottom line for them.
Right.
It doesn't meet their bottom line to fix your lead service line.
Right.
And if they fix your lead service line, they're gonna have to find a way to recoup that money. That's business.
Right.
They don't want to go out of business. They don't want to be bankrupt. So, I mean, what they do is fix your lead service line, charge you in the water bill.
Wow.
Now these folks are having trouble doing that because Newark is doing it for free. So state agencies and other folks are looking and saying, wait a minute, this is going to be an issue. We went to the local finance board. They were concerned because the Newark Water Department has a little surplus, and we can use the surplus to pay down our debt without raising people's taxes to do that, or raising their water bill prices. But they told us no.
The Newark Water Supply the Newark Water Department has a surplus right now.
Yeah. So, but they told us, no, because what it does is it sets a precedent that they don't want to set, because we have the ability to pay for the debt service because the municipality owns the water system. If the private company owns your water system, they can't pay a municipality's debt service for money that the municipal government borrows.
So
you understand what I'm saying?
So really what you're saying is that because we are a government, right? And the government owns Newark Water, the government of Newark owns Newark Water Supply. Yeah. And governments can take out bonds.
Sure.
But in these other cities, private companies own them. Right. And private companies can't take out government bonds.
They can't take out government bonds, but they can take bonds out themselves.
But they don't want to do that.
But what they can't do is the government can't take out a bond and a private company pay the debt service for the government. That's what they can't do. And that's what's being said. So the private company can't pay the debt service for you. The city can't even fix your lead service line because it's yours. So we had to get the laws changed to allow us to fix your lead service line because we're using public money, particularly since if you have one and you don't, I'm using your tax money to fix something in his private home.
Because it's a public good, right?
Right. That's what we had to argue. But on his face, it's not lawful for me to do that.
Because essentially you are taking taxpayer money and putting it in private owners' pockets.
Yeah.
And that's why the law had to be changed.
Right. That's exactly what's happening.
But no one really, I noticed that in the New York Times story that was done, they didn't even mention that. We
call it the error of omission.
Yeah, right. And
that New York Times story was horrible.
But I mean, on so many different levels.
I mean, I think that's a nice way to say it, man. But I think it was a hit job.
Oh, it was a hit job,
right?
It certainly was a hit job.
Yeah, and I think that John is probably one of the only people I saw that wrote a commentary against that, or in defense of our city, based around that. Because I mean, at the end of the day, see, this is why I come back to, who you are, man. Why I say that, we respect our brother, we respect him as the mayor, but we get offended. Those of us who are in the community, in the street, who struggled with you, struggled with your father, when they attack you personally, because I think that at the end of the day, they don't know enough to challenge you, first off.
They don't.
Right? And I heard T.D. Jakes say this one time when somebody questioned his Christianity. He said, well, when you get enough spirit in you, then come challenge me. Right. He said, because I live my life not just based on the word, but I live my life based on the spirit. Well, I say that about you, right? I say that I don't think you know enough to challenge the mayor. And then for you to challenge him personally, I think that's offensive to all of us, not only who know you all, but who know him. And so therefore, I think that what you've done thus far in terms of helping folk who may have had 1,000, who may have not have had $1,000 to pay that part of it. But what should be said is folks should be walking around saying, you know what? Thank you, man, for helping my mother.
They are saying that, though.
Thank you, man. I know we have some folks who came in here and said that. But then we have folks in here who aren't saying that.
No, absolutely. But the beautiful thing about Newark, man, is that, I told one of the reporters, like, I'm in the city. Like you interviewing people you catch in a line, at a site. Come to 14th and 14th with me. Come to a community meeting with me. I'm there all the time. Like my patterns didn't change because of this thing, because y'all got this stuff on TV. I'm still out in the hood. Like, I'm there. So at the end of the day, at all of these meetings, the overwhelming amount of sentiment is how do we get this fixed, man?
Right.
What do we need to do to get this thing fixed? That's what they're interested in.
Right.
And we've been like sharing that, and we've been focused on doing that for them. Like, let's figure out how to get this thing fixed.
Right.
Because, at the end of the day, like I said at the beginning, the idea is to create doubt and this mistrust in leadership. That's what it's designed to do. For people, there's a couple of agendas as to folks who have those agendas and why they want those agendas, but that's the ultimate goal. That's the ultimate goal.
But man, let's keep it 100. It's black leadership.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and because that's really the challenge. I mean, I've heard some brothers around the country, who spoke to me, said the real issue is they want to challenge black leadership.
Yeah.
And they want to challenge him. Right. Sure. And so that's what this has become about, right? And so and even that on you hiring and giving, Kareem Adeem the position you gave him.
Yeah,
so another black man can't give somebody who's qualified to do the job. Now all of a sudden, and John, you know this, man, but you know this is true, right? All of us got degrees up our behinds, right? And you know damn well that our degree don't make us qualified.
Right.
The experience that we get makes us qualified.
Well, let me tell you this. I didn't even hire Kareem. I just didn't fire him.
Right.
And that's the problem. You understand what I'm saying?
And that's the bullshit that was coming forth in the New York Times.
Right. And so the reality is, I was at that interview, and Kareem told him all his qualifications. Licensed water operator, licensed sewer operator, sit on the state board of lead and copper. License. He got 7 different licenses. Was in school, stopped school when his boss passed away. Right. Was the second in charge. She has a degree. She's an engineer. She went to Princeton. She thought it was important to have him next to her. Right. And I told them in the New York Times, I said, listen, when Kevin Durant got hurt in the game in the playoffs, they couldn't make a trade at that point. They had to go with what they had.
Exactly.
And especially they had to go with people who know the plays, who was in practice.
Right.
Kareem in the practice, he know the plays, he know what's going on.
Right.
And he's doing a good job. I'm not going to get rid of him simply because you say I should get rid of him because he don't have a degree that you give out.
Right.
Like I said in the men's meetings, they give the degrees. So they validate all of us. And if they don't validate us, then we have no worth. And the real problem is there are people who are in our community who judge you based on those people's validation. They have to validate you. And I'm not downplaying the importance of education and degrees because I think that's incredibly important.
Absolutely.
But it doesn't validate you. There are people. Malcolm X didn't have a college degree.
But even on the same note,
and Donald Trump does.
And but even on that same note, he has all those certificates. He has experience.
That's right.
He worked directly as a number 2 for a number of years.
And they should talk to him.
But he doesn't just
if they talk to him, they would see.
But he doesn't just have certificates.
Level that the guy has. Man.
John, you spoke to him when he came up here. He has licenses, right?
Yeah.
Even after you get degrees, right? I got licenses from the state of New Jersey.
That's right.
Right. Even after I got my degrees, I had to go and get licensed. They didn't say, "Oh, you got your degree, so therefore you don't need a license." No, they said, "Granted, you got a degree. That's great, but you know what? We're not gonna let you practice law unless you got a license."
That's right.
Right.
You can't even teach school unless you get a license.
Exactly. Right. So that's not gonna happen.
That's right.
Right. So here's a brother that got that. And then here's a brother that has the not only the ability to get the job done, but he also has the information because he worked underneath the sister who was in charge.
And I think that even but I think even when they were spinning one way in terms of, oh, you have an ex-con working for you, spinning the other way is the entire effort that you have that is throughout New Jersey, beyond the box. Those are the qualifications beyond the criminal record.
That's right.
Understand that Like we're the ones
from the liberal New York Times.
Right.
Yeah.
That knows the war on
Right.
drugs was
Yeah.
bad, that it
Right.
incarcerated way too many people.
And-
It prevented
and-
people from going.
They believe in
Right.
redemption, just not for us.
Right.
Right.
But now when it's not convenient,
Right.
or when it's not a sob story that they
Right.
can sell.
Right. That's right. When
And-
there's a black man in a position, they don't
Absolutely.
believe in redemption.
Right.
Right.
He
Right.
don't belong there anyway. And now you got him there, he really don't belong
Right.
there. And that's really what it's about.
Right.
And they turned it into that because the narrative is really about us not being able to manage, these poor, corrupt, uneducated black men are running these communities
Right.
into the ground, and that's what it is. Not capitalism, not oppression, not all these other things. These uneducated, unprepared, mismanaged, corrupt black men are running these cities into the ground, and these even the liberals, we got to come from high on to save them,
Right. Because
From
a
themselves.
savior, right? They
That's
want a
right.
white savior to come in.
Right.
That's right.
I think the thing that pissed me
John,
off about the New York Times story.
You said that about school teachers. You remember when Tammy was here?
Right.
You said, well, what I forget what you called it.
A missionary complex,
Yeah,
white
yeah,
saviorism.
yeah.
I called it a lot of things.
Yeah, like we had to have this.
We're gonna roll back then.
Yeah, like all of a sudden there was no way that we could educate our own children.
Right.
Like how could that be?
Like we don't trust black communities to
Right.
educate our own kids.
Right.
Right.
So we at this point now where we're not going to trust Mayor Baraka because he's black. Are you serious?
But I think that probably what most the New York Times story I thought was so egregious because it deliberately ignored a lot of the stuff that you did, which was so high level and had not been done before. Like changing the law so that we can use public money to pay to get these out, right? Even the first iteration of the program, which was $75 million, right? Even the first, not in the article at all, not mentioned, right? And the first plan, which was $75 million over 10 years, yes, took too long. Good criticism, right? But change the law, pay for it as a first step.
But here's even in that criticism, is the federal government gonna give us any money? Is the state gonna give us any money?
Right.
You want us we had to go find money on our own to do this. We had to find our own money. We didn't get no money from the federal government. We didn't get no money from the state.
So
we had to find money on our own.
So in that first $75 million, that was something that raised.
That's still the water department bonded that $75 million. We did that. We had to get the state to subsidize that, and the only reason we get the state to subsidize that so you wouldn't have to pay the full price, right? Even we would have to be like Suez. We would bond it, but we have to, in order to get it back, we have to tax you on the water rate.
And Suez is the private companies that own a lot of the water supplies in other cities. What you're saying they do is they will pay for it, but they will put it on your bill.
Right.
So you end up paying for it, and your water bill ends up going sky high.
Yeah, well, we had to do that, make sure that we bonded and got the state, so you only have to pay $1,000. Now you don't have to pay nothing.
So now it went from a max of $1,000 to nothing.
Yeah.
The New York Times ever cover that?
Well, you read the article.
I mean, did they write another one? Did they go, hey, we missed something?
Yeah, but that wasn't their intent. I told you what the intent is, to create mistrust.
Yeah.
To separate you from folks who begin to have hope and faith in something progressive. They don't want people to have hope because they want you to have hope and faith in them. Even the liberal community, even the left community,
especially
have always had trouble organizing in our community, and they blame leadership. They blame us in leadership for their inability to organize working people in the city. Not the fact that they don't have the right line,
right,
or the right ideas, but they blame you. And what they're really saying is that the people are too ignorant to discern what's good for them and what's not good for them.
Right.
That's at the basis of that is what they're saying. So they believe that if they attack you, that the people are going to follow them. But if they've studied history, that has never worked.
Right.
The only interest that have served is the interest of the right and the conservatives, right? Even in countries around the world that have created revolution, right? When they fight each other for the attention of the people, the right wins.
Right.
That's always been the case. And that's what they do. And instead of organizing the people, they try to get them against you because they believe that you're the reason that the people are not following them.
Right.
right? Not them.
Right.
And that, in essence, is why they'll never be able to organize people. Never. That's why the rally that they had, even at the VMAs, with the 5 people, were arrested. None of them were from Newark.
Hmm.
Not one.
So all the people who were arrested, none of them were from Newark.
Not one. Not one.
And you can know that because when you're arrested, you have to put your address and all that other stuff. That's just public information.
Mostly all white men from outside of the city. Yep. And then so you have to ask yourself, why can't you win the imagination of the people? And so there's 2 things they do. They exaggerate everything. So they feel like if they make it seem like it's so big and so wild and so crazy. So maybe 5 people got shot. 50 people were shot in the city. And they say that because they think if they scare you enough, then you'll get angry enough and afraid enough to be organized. But that's never worked. Never. Or they think if they attack you, the person that's in front of you, attack their character, attack everything else, that you'll fall away from them and finally listen to them. Not sharpen their own line, right? Not figure out what they're saying, which is not reaching the masses. Why can't they? And my experience tells me because people need things today.
And speaking of today, right? In the short term, if the 15,000 homes are getting water, like 4 cases every 2 weeks, whatever, right? Like, and that's going well.
We've given out almost 80,000 cases of water.
And so if you need water, you can go and get water.
I'm sorry, John, Mayor, I think it's 18,000, right?
No, 80,000 cases of water.
80. No, I'm saying homes in the city.
Oh, 18,000 homes that have lead service lines.
Right.
But 15,000 that were problematic. 3,000 were.
Well, it ain't even all in Newark. So some of the 18,000 and some of it, we fixing lead service lines in Belleville and Hillside.
Oh, wow. So the 18,000, that's Belleville, Hillside as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
See, that wasn't reported.
At all.
Because people don't know that. We don't get to. I just told you we stay on the face. We don't get into the weeds of what's going on. We don't analyze what's happening here and what everybody's motivation is. Like what are these people's motivation? Like what is the New York Times motivation for doing what they did? You know, not to report the news, because if it was, then they would have put all the facts in there and gave you the opportunity to make a decision for yourself about what you think is right and wrong. To omit information purposefully and deliberately means you have a specific agenda.
And especially when it was the information that actually led to the long-term fix of the problem.
Yeah, that plus all kind of other things.
Right.
First of all, none of these people would know anything if we didn't report it.
Right.
And that's what people are missing, right? We test our own water. Nobody tests our water for us. Newark tests their own water. And then we report it. That's how people know about it.
And when the accusation, and this is another thing, right? The accusation of lying and covering up came when you got the information. You sent out like letters.
You gotta send it out.
You sent out letters to everybody who was affected. I don't know how you can send out.
To the way the lead and copper rule work. So if you get any exceedance on anything, that's why we always in compliance with the state. You have to send a letter on the water bill to every homeowner, every person in the city, even if it doesn't affect them.
Wait, so this went out to everyone in the city?
Everybody, even if it doesn't affect them. So if I find lead in the water in your home and not your neighbor's home, your neighbor still got to get that. So your neighbor has to get it, right?
So when you send out mail to the entire city, I don't know how that's considered covering up.
Well,
like you can make criticisms
public
that
information.
You did not, right? You can make criticisms. Oh, wait, this should have been blown up more.
Yeah.
You should have talked about this more. You should have communicated. You can make those arguments, but you can't say cover up when you send out a letter to everyone in the city.
Well,
I thought it was just to the people who were affected.
No, you got to send it to everybody, and then it's public. So when we make a report, we make it to the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. It goes on New Jersey Water Watch on the web, and then it's also reported to the EPA. You know, so it's all public information. That's how NRDC found out, because it's public information.
Right.
It's all public. You know, the media kind of blows it up, so you begin to see it in your face. But it's all public information. It's all out there, right? And so to say that is just false. And the press know that, so they don't say that directly. They allow people to infer that, and then those people say it. And that's basically, so you never heard Karen Heath from the start say, oh, the mayor lied. She said, oh, they downplayed it, right? They use the right adjectives so they don't get themselves in trouble, right? So other folks begin to take that and run with it somewhere else, right?
Because it's public information that was reported immediately anyway.
Oh,
It was
absolutely.
reported to multiple places immediately.
We got in this because we reported 2 filters were not functioning the way they were supposed to function.
Right, 2.
Out of 39,000.
And that's legitimate. You got to report those 2. But like the context is like, look, we saw 2. We got to let everybody know. And you switched from filters to water for the entire city off of 2 not working.
That's what we did. Absolutely. So we could test it. And I'm optimistic about the test results. When they come back, we getting them in. We're gonna make an announcement next week about what's happening. But at the end of the day,
announcements next week about
the filters,
and whether or not they work or how they work.
That's right.
Part of what I've heard is that you need to make sure you know how to use the filters and know how to install them. And do you think that might come out? Like,
sure.
Because I never knew you weren't supposed to put hot waters in the filter.
Yeah.
Right. Like I didn't know that.
Yep.
Right.
So that's going to be a part of it, as well. And then, I even at the volunteer meeting, I said, listen, when you go to the pharmacy and you get some medicine because you got a headache, when you read the back of it, it tells you it's probable that you can get this, and this, and this. It's rare and unlikely,
right,
but it's probable.
Right.
You don't throw all your medicine in the garbage. When you get a headache, you take one of those things. And that's what, so in all of the filters, you may get 1 or 2 that's defective, right? That has even nothing to do with, the way you're using it, right?
Sure.
It may be defective. So it's rare and unlikely, but you might be the rare and unlikely person that got that, right? And that's, just to look at it in terms of a scientific way, right? So, and part of it also is to make sure people are using it properly, but that's also the case, right? So at the end of the day, when the data comes out, we'll be able to make a definitive kind of assessment of how we move forward. But we have all kind of cases of water now. We got all kind of stuff. We raised $500,000 around water.
But even on the pure filter thing, like I don't know how that's not a positive thing for the city, because that's a private company that has a contract for selling filters. We all trusted that those filters will work. There was an indication that they might not work as expected. Who uncovered that? The city. Who forced the company into being like, yo, company, you need to do a whole lot of tests because Streets is watching and your credibility is on the line. And as a company that makes these filters for everybody. So,
but yeah, and then the DEP and the EPA and everybody got involved in it. So it wasn't just the company testing. It was a bunch of people testing. They tested every filter that we tested, about 225 filters, every one of them 6 times at 6 different points in the home. So they tested those filters. They tested the heck out of them.
And that is something that, like, you're talking about what you did offers consumer protection, right? Like, and that's something that hadn't been done in any of these water crises. How do you know the filters work? You test them. When 2 did not work, forced the company and the EPA, everybody got together and was like, let's test the hell out of this, right? That's not a cover-up.
Right, because the cover-up would be for us not to report it.
Right. That's covering up, right? Yeah. Covering up is keep using the filters. We only tested 2. Right. Like, so even on the level of cover-up, I don't understand that when everything is immediately reported, everything is public information. Right. That's mailed to every household in the city of Newark.
I'm telling you what the objective is, right? And the objective for them always remains the same.
But I'm just keeping repeating the truth, right? Yeah. Like, I'm just going to keep repeating that, like, if you're saying it's a cover-up, you have to be able to explain how you're covering something up when you mailed the results to every household in the city. See, I thought it was just to 15,000 households.
No.
But the results were mailed to every household in the city of Newark.
That's right.
Were reported to multiple agencies. Were reported so that NRDC would be able to see it, right?
That's right.
You did not create hysteria behind it. And, why didn't you blow it up? Well, because we knew who it affected. We made certain recommendations. We knew that people had to get their water tested, right? But but blowing it up, I think, could even easily be counterproductive. But everybody's reporting it. Like, you don't want people to think that the water source is bad.
Right. And that was what we were fighting, because people were trying to say that.
Because that means that no one could drink the water in the entire city.
Right. And that's just not true. It's not true.
And on top of that, John, remember there was also a court victory that determined that.
That's right.
And so, see, but this is why I keep getting back.
And to explain what happened in court, they basically there are 18,000 lead lines within the Newark area, and you were providing services in terms of water filters to 15,000 homes because they were affected by by one line of a reservoir, right?
Right.
The other line, the 3,000 homes, you were like, that isn't affected. The science was that wasn't affected, and so you're like, we're not going to immediately service you, but if you think you need water, you can still come
Right.
and get your lines tested
Yeah.
and all the other stuff. So it's not like we're not providing you anything,
And here's the
but we're
thing,
not mandated to do it.
and no
We're not even
one
mandated
no
to
one
give
is
out
being
water.
turned away from getting water, John. So
Right.
that's another lie, right?
Right.
So we've got people who are saying in our city that the mayor, and I love the way they keep saying the mayor, right? The mayor is not allowing pregnant women to get water,
Damn.
seniors to get water. This is the line. And see, this is why I think that for those of us,
And let me
but
just
John, I'm saying this is why those of us who come from the tutelage of Amiri Baraka, and I'm holding myself back from cussing, but because we know Mayor Baraka enough to turn the mics off and say, brother, we got to talk, man. But we know enough to know that this brother lives in the city, his wife lives in the city. This brother's about to have another king or queen, and so he's also
congratulations.
under that. So why would this brother put his own self and his family and us? We can get at this brother.
And
This ain't somebody we can't get at. We can turn the mics off and say, man, we got to talk. So, and everybody else, when he talks about being in the hood, listen, I've got to testify on this, right? Because we've had the sister, when Flo came in here, brought some community people in here. This brother went in the community and sat in the block, man, and answered people questions, signed them up to replace their lead lines, and gave them water. So what I'm saying is, and I'm keeping it 100, we can get at this man, brother. There's some mans you can't get at.
right, like in terms of just having access.
Right. And what I mean,
and
what I mean is, this is the same brother. If you saw him in the community and you had whatever these folks are saying, he ain't gonna change what he's saying right now to fit what it is that fit your narrative. No, I'm gonna tell you what it is.
And I would even go one step further. Most community activists in the city, like this is the most friendly mayor to community activists pretty much in my lifetime, right? Like in terms of, Ken Gibson, not too friendly to activists, like people, once he got elected, Sharp James might have been friendly, but not as accessible because he didn't come from that whole, or at least did not seem like he was as accessible in that way. Cory Booker is kind of legendary for, and I like him now as senator, but it's kind of legendary for having a lot of New York people and not having a lot of access. Mayor Baraka, when he was councilman, and then even before that, would come on our show, would talk to people within the community, was always there. And so in terms of if you're an environment, I said this a couple of weeks ago, if you're an environmental activist and you are serious about environmental activism, this is probably the best mayor that we've had in Newark to be serious about. Because I think that if you're a serious environmental activist, there are legitimate criticisms. You could talk about like what standards are we using? We use the EPA standards. The EPA standards too lenient. Should we use different standards? But I think those are things that like everybody in the mayor's office is down to have a conversation about, right? Like, and it's not even controversial because, not to speak for you, Mayor Baraka, but you don't really trust the government that much either. I mean, we were talking about if someone was like, "Hey, EPA standards are bad. These standards are really better." They're allowing too much, right? I mean, it's not like you'd be like, "No, the government. I trust them."
And John, don't you remember when Mayor Baraka got elected? Don't you remember what we said? We didn't say this to you, Mayor, but we said this amongst ourselves. For the first time, we felt like we had a mayor. This is what we felt because of all of us coming up together, right? All of us having role in this city, Rhino, all of us, man. Right? We don't say this to you when you hear, but we like, yo, for the first time, we all felt like, oh, we got a mayor now, right? And you said as much when you got elected. What'd you say, man? You said when I became mayor, you became mayor.
Yeah.
But goddamn it, I didn't become the mayor so y'all could attack me personally and my family. While I'm fighting like hell, not only to save my life, but to save your life, and I'm fighting other people. Remember, man, you said this when you got elected. You said that my enemies are bigger than your enemies.
That's right.
Right? I mean, you guys are fighting on this level, but you have no idea the hell I'm catching. I mean, even at our men's meetings, Mayor Baraka, when you talk about, trying to get us to become, homeowners in the city and the information you giving us, there are people that don't like that. There are people that don't like the fact that you were successful in terms of getting oversight over the police department. There are people that don't like that, right? So we're doing things in this city that have never been done. And I'm saying,
And you're talking about the Civilian Complaint Review Board and the
exactly.
reforms to the police
And
department
John,
that actually are leading the country,
yes,
right? The Civilian Complaint Review Board that got actually, like, and I'm saying that all this stuff, if there's any criticism that I have of what you've been doing, is that a lot of the good stuff just hasn't come out, right? I think there's a lot more good stuff.
But that's why it's up to us,
is
John.
being put out, right?
That's why it's up to us. Those of us, don't listen. I remember hearing a professor of mine say one time. He said, he said, if you've done a lot of great things, he said it's not necessarily necessary for you to go and toot your horn. He said those who are around you that know the work you've done should be saying it for you.
And I'm the least,
especially amongst those who want to
Ed,
attack it.
but Ed, you know me, I'm the least rah person there is, right? Like I'm like, show me facts, whatever, right? After the New York Times article, and I'm reading the New York Times article, and just being and having to do like I read so much just to try to understand the basis of this conflict, right? The basis of what's going on right now. And reading the New York Times article, I'm like, it's the opposite. Like you are actually giving me misinformation. I when I'm a school teacher, and when I can break down the issue better than the New York Times, that's a problem.
Right.
Right.
They weren't trying to break down the issue.
Right.
They was just trying to do the hit piece.
Right. Right.
Now
we've been hit long enough to know when to stop when we got hit though.
True. Now they're like so when I'm having conversations, like I plan on interviewing a lot of people who feel different kind of way, right? And the interviews are always going to go the same way. I'm just going to ask them, right? So you're saying that he lied. How can you lie? How can you say he's lying when he sent mail to everybody? How's that lying? Right? So, well, he didn't blow it up as much as possible, but he actually, it was the major understanding of this has been how many years, right? Like, the first time that there were notices of lead levels to now were like, what, 2.5 years?
Yeah.
So in 2.5 years, we like a year ago is when you were giving out filters.
October 2018.
And
Hey
so,
John, let me stop you right there. Think about this for a second. The brother did not have to give out the filters, man.
no, but we understand
After that, here's somebody who said, man, let's make a decision. After these two homes are tested, let's give everybody the filters. Think
but
about
that was
the level
before
of
in 18, but the border was afterwards, right? Like, so like the first is like there were levels where, okay, in these 15,000 homes, that's when the filters were given out, right? And so that even doing that, right? Is there any other place that did that with that time frame? Because the time frame is small.
No, because the lead and copper rule don't tell you to do that. All you have to do is let people know that they have lead in their water, and it's up to them to protect themselves.
So really, the rules, because these are privately owned lines, you let them know, and they change the lines themselves.
Well, the country don't look at it as an emergency anyway, because of the chemical in the water that's supposed to prevent lead from getting in the pipe. That's why they allowed Flint to still be working on their lead service lines all of this time, which is why the state allowed us to go through this 8-year period to get our lead service lines fixed. That we would have to go through 8 years to get money in order to draw down and get the lead service lines replaced. Once we had this problem with the filters, I was insistent on speeding that up, reducing that time and speeding that up, because ultimately while people fuss and fight, I got to change the lead service line.
Right.
You can say and do what you want, I'm going to move the lead service line. That's basically what my motivation is. I can't tell you what everybody else are. Some of them I do know because, I make it my business to know my enemies. So at the end of the day, some people are, no matter what it is, they're going to use whatever it is to come like this at this level, no matter what it is. So those people aren't going away. That's their assignment, to destroy anything that we create, right? That's their assignment. And those people are going to be there. And there's a whole bunch of other people that are sprinkled in there because they're confused. They don't know what's going on. They get a lot of different information. So they and rightfully so, they have to be made clear. We have to give them the right information so they can understand the complexity of all of this so they can make a decision on their own. It's difficult with all this noise and information out here, but we have to get it done.
And so just to to recap certain things, right? Like when the first problem came with lead within those water service lines, that's something that the private homeowners traditionally have to deal with themselves. You just have to inform them.
Right. So on October the 2nd, we have in the State of the Water at A.P.A.L. People should come out. You can hear all of this and more. So when we test the water, you test about 100 homes. If 10 of those homes have exceedances, then you have, in fact, a problem. So if 9 of them have it, so they're around the state, people can have non-exceedances. The reason they allow that is because you get false positives, and some people do the testing wrong, or some other thing has happened. That city is cleaning out the water line, all kind of stuff. So you have to get that 2 consecutive times. The first time you get it, you don't know what the problem is, right?
Okay.
It could be a problem in your home, so you got to send it out that we found lead high. We had high levels of lead in the water. We found that, so everybody gets that, and so you have to make a decision about what you want to do. But ultimately, all you know is it might be those 5 or 6 people's homes, something that's going on. So the first thing you have to do
is
there
should be internal plumbing. Right. That's the problem.
Exactly. So you have to go check what's going on, and maybe the corrosion control is not working. So you raise the dosage. You do all kind of other things. You check the water mains. You do all this other stuff. It's called a desktop audit, right? Then we test again. You get another exceedance. We report it to the state. We got another exceedance. The state reports it. Then the press picks it up. Newark has another exceedance. Then at that time, we hire somebody to come tell us, why are you getting these exceedances? So they go and they gave us a recommendation, a hypothesis. Maybe you need to check out your corrosion control because everything else seems to be okay. So we take a pipe out of the ground and we mail it to the EPA. The EPA does a scientific study that takes them a couple of months. They send it back and say the corrosion control that you got in the water is not effective anymore. So now we have to put a new one in. So the lead and copper rule says
takes time to even tell if you actually have a problem.
Absolutely.
Because if you report the first thing you get, you could be reporting anything. You could just be making mass hysteria for no reason.
And you could be wrong. You can go back and test it again, and it'll be low. Just like the nonsense they tested. 1180 has 50 parts per billion. They tested, not true.
Right.
We tested. Then they said, we don't trust you. Let them test it. They tested, not true.
Right.
They tested 3-4 times. It's just not true. So it's possible to get false readings. Okay. Right. So at the end of the day, you have to be clear on what it is you're doing. You have to do it in a scientific way, because you can send out stuff and tell people there's lead in the water, and then the what people understand, the public health crisis becomes people stop using the water.
Right.
And the issue with Flint is a lot of people stopped using the water, and so the disinfectants in the water became useless, right? Which makes the water putrid, right? Which makes it dangerous, because all water has to be treated before it's potable. That's why some countries don't have potable water, because they don't have a water system to treat their water. So all water has to be treated, and the water has to keep moving. It can't remain stagnant.
Okay,
right?
So not using the water, if people just stop using water,
so it's actually a health risk problems. To give out water arbitrarily to everybody. Right? It's really so when people say, I want to help, I'm gonna give out water, but you might be giving water to people who don't need it.
Right. And really running the water actually is a safety mechanism for water.
Absolutely. Using the water and then telling people, you can't take a bath, you can't wash your clothes, you can't wash the dishes. Listen, none of that is true. Right. So when you do that, you actually reduce the city's ability to make the water potable.
Because we're not just talking about lead, we're talking about
everything,
just other forms of treatment.
Right.
And the way water is treated, it has to move.
Because the water is natural.
Yeah.
It's come from a reservoir.
Right.
That's outside. Birds, animals, leaves, all those things get in the reservoir. You have to treat that, right? You have to treat those things. Algae gets in the water. You have to treat all of those things so it becomes potable, right? I mean, the military got devices that they could drop out of a plane, a box, a filter. They could basically drink water out of a hippopotamus ditch. They filters the water clean. So they got devices to do all of this stuff, right? But at the end of the day, you got to make the water potable. So you have to treat it, right? And when it's stagnant, right? So sometimes the water department comes out, they have to monitor the water use.
Okay.
So and we go over that. So that they come out Friday, they might go to your block and turn the fire hydrant on. and just sit there, let the fire hydrant run.
So sometimes when you see the fire hydrant run, that's deliberate.
Yes, it's deliberate. They're cleaning the water. They're flushing the water system out, and they're making sure it keeps moving. They're also cleaning the water. They're flushing it. They're flushing it. They're flushing it. Actually, the water. Actually, and when people say, "Oh," like in the article the Star Ledger wrote, they said, "Listen, they tested the water main, the water main. That's just not factual. You don't have access to the water main. If you had access to our water main, Homeland Security would be here."
Oh, true.
Right. So you don't have access to our water main.
Someone said they actually tested that.
Yeah, the source water.
At the reservoir.
No, they don't know what they're talking about. They were testing water that was coming in the building. They said, "Oh, we tested the source water." No, you didn't. Right? You didn't test the source water. Right? The water coming out of the fire hydrant.
Oh, because our reservoirs are protected.
Yeah, the water, exactly. The water coming out of the fire hydrant doesn't go through lead service lines. So the water out of the fire hydrant is probably safer for people who have lead service lines than the water that's coming in their home.
Because the municipal pipes are fine.
Are not made from lead.
Right.
Right? They're made from cast iron or other kind of iron, ductile iron, or all this other kind of stuff. Or some of them are aligned with even cement. Right? So there's no lead in the main. The only lead is in the service line.
That are privately owned.
So,
which is why when you're sending the information to everyone on the water bill, traditionally it's like, you have the problem, you have to fix it.
Right.
But you just changed all of that.
Right. Or the city has, we got a high reading, an exceedance in this bacteria or that bacteria, which means we have to do specific things. And all that means is we might have tested 100 homes and 6 or 7 of them came up with high exceedances, which means we got to figure out what's going on with them 6 or 7.
And when you're saying exceedances, there can be exceedances for a lot of different things.
Yeah.
Right? Not just lead. You treat water for all sorts of bacteria, etc.
70 different things.
And if there's exceedances in any of those,
everybody
in the city has to know about it.
Everybody. Even if it's just your house.
So one thing I just didn't know is, like, on your water bill, you actually have
a
report about all the tests that have been done recently.
All of it. Everything.
Wow.
John, we're out of time with the mayor's forum, and brother, we want to thank you for coming through, man.
Yes, sir. Always a pleasure.
Appreciate you coming through. And I'm going to say this straight off the black.
Straight off the black.
Straight off the black. I respect you keeping it black, brother. And because in this city, man, what we're not going to do is, and at least here at All Politics Are Local, we're not going to allow anyone or anybody to cloud your truth, brother. And so from where we come from, man, and look, man, we know how to take it on another level too, but we want to keep it as black as we can and just be able to tell the truth the way it needs to be told. So we thank you for coming through.
I appreciate it, man. One last thing before I get out of here, man. I told the reporter the other day, listen, if you don't want to get hit, don't get in the ring.
Yeah.
The only side of that is that when you get in the ring with me, you got to expect to get hit back.
No doubt.
Right.
I was on social media. The guy was like, why are you responding to me? Don't you have other stuff to do? Yeah. Make sure you're not on this thing saying craziness.
Right.
But at the end of the day, and then they start evoking my dad, like, my father taught me how to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And my fighting is different from your fighting. So you can get a fake name and say what you want and spread whatever. People, these activists, they want to say something, but they can't deal with the confrontation.
That's right.
I had to face people when I was 19, 20 years old at conferences.
In person.
I had to debate them.
You ran against Sharp James.
I had to debate them. I'm talking about even when we went to conferences with other revolutionaries, other activists, you had to show and prove that stuff you read.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
Right.
You had to go back. That's right. Straight up and down. You had to go back and forth. I didn't have the luxury of hiding under some pseudonym and saying stuff about you and not having you respond and get angry if you do. I had to raise my hand or catch you in the hallway at the conference and say, look, brother, so about the song, well, I don't agree with that line. And we go back and forth about that. Right. And some of those people are my best friends today that we had polemics with. We had
because that builds respect.
That's right. That we engaged at one of them conferences about stuff we read and things that we thought they wasn't doing based on what we thought we knew.
Right.
So I mean, we got a chance to do that, but today that's not happening.
Right.
That's what Pat Council said when he sat here. He said, if you come at us, we coming back at you.
But I think even for me, the most important thing is that you're actually doing some stuff that has never been done.
That's all right.
And I think that it's like, when they're trying to portray you as incompetent, not knowing what you're doing, but you're doing stuff that no other city in the state, and probably no other city in the country has done. You've blurred the line between public and private. You've gotten public money to pay for private water lines to be private pipes to be
Somebody
removed,
said
right?
history will absolve me.
Right, and I'm not saying, and trust and believe. I know, like you were an elected official, you were paid to, get that abuse and take it and give it back. I'm talking about just like the city as a whole, right?
Yeah.
Like the image of Newark as like, oh, we're incompetent, we have incompetent leadership, we can't do. No, Newark is doing stuff that no one else is doing.
But the majority
Right?
of the people in the city don't think that, and that's what makes me feel good. When I go to community meetings, if I'm getting chased out of there and people are yelling at me, pointing their fingers, saying all kind of stuff, this and that at these community meetings, that's not happening. Right. It might be the same people that may show up to the meetings and try to do that, but the folks in the community, they are trying to get this thing taken care of, and they understand where we at and what we've been doing.
And you know why that is, man? That is because you have not made the mistake that President Obama made. You have not left the community, right? One of the things that people are saying is that imagine had Obama kept that text crew. Remember, whenever he needed money, he could send out a text to all of his people, and overnight he'd raise damn near $1 billion. But when he got elected, he lost that. What you didn't lose, man, was that you stayed in the community. With even doing all of those things where you go back and on the block and do those things in the community. That's it, man. And so for all of these naysayers and all these people running around saying that on October 2nd, we're going to set the record straight.
Yes, sir.
We're going to do a town hall meeting and we're going to set the record straight.
That's
man.
what it's supposed to be.
So if y'all, so all of y'all who out there getting misinformation, the mayor just said it. October 2nd, bring yourself to the New Jersey PAC.
What day?
You want to do? You want to hear directly from this brother? You want to hear him lay it out? Come down October 2nd. If
shout
not,
out to the
to
the dude from 1180 who was in there having a meeting. White guy, matter of fact, said I voted for you. I wasn't born and raised here, but I voted for you. I trust you, and people need to see your leadership elevated on this issue. They need to hear from you, not 7, 12, 11, 2, and 4, and to hear what you got to say. I want to hear what you got to say.
Right.
So that's the reason that we even doing the thing in the first place.
There you go, brother.
Exactly.
There it is, y'all. Y'all got the mayor's form.
We ran a little over, but we will be back with Colonel Jesse Morehouse talking about like strategic ways to solve like big problems and complicated problems. So I mean, it should be a fun. He's someone I interviewed and talked to over the summer. He's a colonel in the National Guard, former Ranger. He jumps out of planes, ran 100 miles.
All right.
Like did all he's Rambo, except for he's real civil and he's real smart. Wears glasses. He doesn't look like like Rambo, but his background is very Rambo-ish.
All right.
But he gives a but I've learned a lot in terms of just how to deal with policy. I'm a debate coach, and what he said was valuable. So I figured a conversation within our community about complex problems, different ways to deal with it, might be fun to deal with. Might be, and we might all be able to learn something. So
I need to get some pictures with the mayor.
Yes, and so but we're still on. So we'll be back right after DJ Rhino takes it away. So all politics are local. America's number one political hip hop radio talk show. DJ Rhino, take it away.